what I found from the book was that realization, because what I found out from writing the book was that the reason of why I am the way that I am is because of what I experienced. And so you're right, I am, the circumstance did create this person, but that's the interesting thing is the circumstance doesn't have to create the person in a negative way. It can also be in some positive way. I think that trauma causes you to become a different person, but it could be in a lot of good ways.
You could use it for good. Yeah.
100%.
Welcome back to Create with Kate. I am so excited to have an amazing podcast guest. I have been trying to do this podcast with him for, it feels like a year, but we are finally here and we are in a hotel room at Caesars. And I don't know what time it is, 10 o'clock, but we're making it happen because that's what we do. So finally, I have Dakota Bailey in the studio hotel room. Welcome.
Thank you.
How did you discover Wealthy Investor?
Yeah, so Wealthy Investor. Back when I started, it was called Future Flipper.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I found that because Ryan Dawsey, I don't know if you guys ever heard of him. He's in Indiana. He got like 200 units in rentals, and I was like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, rentals is the way to go. And then this is the guy to do it because he's in the same state that I'm in. He built it the same way that I can do it, and like I just want to follow him. So we went to go get in his coaching program. Well, there's another guy in town that claimed exclusivity apparently with this guy. So now I'm like, okay, I can't hire this guy as a coach. Who else could be a coach? Because I think we need a coach. And then I just found Ryan on Instagram. He probably had like 20,000 followers or something at the time. And so I just found him and I was like, I mean, I'm sure he can teach us a lot. And so I was like, whatever, we'll sign up. And so Roham, I don't know if did you know Roham? Okay, yeah. So Roham became a good friend of mine, but Roham was the one who I talked to and just super chill and was talking about. He's like, dude, I think it can help you a lot. And we joined the program. There's probably like 50 people in the program. We're just in Ryan's office, and it was really cool.
So were you in it the same time as Javi?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Me and Javi were in the same time. Yep. Okay,
that's cool. So you were selling cars at this time?
Yep. So I was selling cars and then doing real estate on the side. I think we probably had like 20 to 25 rentals at the time. Okay. And we were basically just using my income from the dealership, and then I had low debt to income. And so then we're just basically recycling. I had a line of credit against my house. I probably had like $30,000, $40,000 saved up. And then we were just rotating $100K, because we're buying houses for like $20,000, $30,000. And so we just buy them, refinance, and then just keep recycling the money. And I'm like, dude, we're freaking geniuses. This is like going to be great. And then Ryan's like, dude, you guys are stupid. And I'm like, no, it's Indiana, like we buy it for 20 grand, it rents for 700, it makes all this cash flow. He's like, dude, he's like, you guys are basically just wasting your time making a couple $100 when you could build a business that would make, a lot of money if you teach other people how to do it and scale it. And I'm like, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. And like, I was just like, for some reason, not open to it. It's funny. You hire him as a coach and then he gives you advice. And then I'm like, yeah, and I don't listen. Yeah. A year later, we finally listened. And so once we started listening, that was actually when I quit my job in April of 21 was when we started listening.
Okay.
And then, so we had nobody working for us at that time in April of 21. And then I quit. And I actually was just reminiscing with my business partner, Tony, because we were walking through the office on like a Sunday. It was just like nobody's there. And then I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like just thinking about where we were in 21 because there was nobody. I'm like, do you remember what I said when I quit? And he's like, yep, I remember. And I was like, what did I say? He's like, you told me you're going to blow this thing up. And like, that's kind of what happened. It was when I left, just followed everything that Ryan taught us down to a T and just basically saw what he did. Very similar to Susan, like coming in the office and like just shadowed and saw what everybody did, wrote down everything that they do, their percentages, all that stuff. And I kind of did a mixture between what I learned from the car business and then what I saw Ryan do. And then, yeah.
So what's the business doing today?
Like overall, each individual person, like income.
Well, I don't know, just tell me like where did it start to where it is today?
Okay.
Like the growth. So that people can understand the impact that Ryan Pineda's coaching had.
Yeah. So when we first started, the first person that we hired was an assistant. And then we brought on an acquisitions guy. So those were our first couple hires, and now we're at like 16 people. We have 3 acquisitions guys, 1 dispositions guy, a project manager, COO, 2 TCs. We have a couple. Well, we already talked about the couple social media people, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so, but Brian has put a number on this. He talks about you and how much real estate you have, and then how many wholesale and flips like you've done. Like, what's that number?
Oh, sure. So how many we've done? I don't even know how many we've done anymore. It's probably like over 600.
Oh, wow.
And we own 80 rentals. We buy somewhere around 20, 25 houses a month. So
okay, yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So, what advice would you give to your younger self?
What age?
If you wanted to get into real estate?
Oh, if I wanted to get into real estate? Oh, man, that's a good question. The advice that I give to everybody now, which is kind of funny, is do not flip. Like, don't flip, just wholesale.
Really? But that's the opposite of what Brian says. Well, kind of.
Well, that's the funniest part too, is when I first got into the program, Ryan is the one who convinced us to flip a lot more. So my advice now would be like, man, life would be so much simpler if we were just wholesaling instead of flipping, because when you flip, the amount of back end stuff that you have to build in order to like do multiple flips at a time, we're in the middle of like 20 something flips, and like you got to turn on the insurance, you got to make sure the utilities are on, like you got to get the private money lender, you got to set up their payments, you got to like just the amount of back end like systems and processes that you have to follow, as opposed to I got a contract, I send it into the title company, and then now I just assign it. Like it's so much more simple. And you can make a lot more money, in my opinion, because you can build systems to follow up better, to dispo better, to do your transaction coordinating better. But man, when you get into these other cities with their stupid rules on turning on, we have some in these small cities where to turn on the utilities, they want us to go in person. I'm like, I'm not coming in person.
Yeah.
And like you have to you have that in all these other cities. So then you pay taxes, like trying to pay the taxes while you're in the middle of flipping the properties. Like it's just new rules everywhere. So it's a lot of learning and stuff that if you just wholesaled, it would be a lot more simple. So
that would be your advice.
Yeah, my
stick
advice
to
my advice would be to my younger self would be stick to wholesaling. The reason that I like flipping, though, I do want to at least say why I'm still doing it. One is because I love the people, and like I had a conversation with Ryan about that actually too, because I don't necessarily always do what's best for the business or what's best for me. I do what's best for like collectively the people, because I care a lot about them. So that's one. I care about them. I want to keep their job, and it's still making money. So it's like, all right, I'll deal with some bull crap.
Yeah.
But then the other part that's really helpful is like having the crews in order to fix up the properties. And so whenever the rentals need, fixed up or something, it's like, all right, we already have the people to do it. And so that's really nice to like always have somebody there, because finding good contractors is extremely difficult too. That's a whole nother part of flipping that I didn't even talk about. That's like, that is extremely difficult to find the good contractors.
So I know you really care about helping people, and that's one of the things I really like about you, because you can tell. Can you share with people like a little bit about your childhood and some of the things that you've like overcome, like and been pivotal moments in your life? Because I'm just gonna ask it, because that's what I do. So you were raised in foster care, right?
Yeah, for a couple of years. Yeah,
for a couple of years, and then if I remember correctly, like you did get into like drugs, right? Or that was Brian.
Yeah, I did not.
So what was the story? There was something I'm forgetting about you.
I don't know what
it was like this really great story that you told me. Now I'm not remembering the details.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I mean, my parents were definitely on drugs when I was
maybe
younger.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so my entire family was on drugs, and some of them still are, and like my uncles were in and out of jail for manufacturing drugs and stuff, and so.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
you just grew up in a completely different environment.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So it's like really remarkable that you are where you are today, because usually you're like a product of your environment.
In some aspects, yeah. So I thought a lot about it. I just wrote. I'm almost done with a book too, so I like had to process through this whole entire thing. So I think that some people will use that as a reason of, oh yeah, the reason that I am this way is because of my childhood, because of all this stuff. And then what I've also seen happen a lot, and I see this happen a lot with like successful people, is the trauma almost becomes that sense of like proving that they're not that person. And that's why I said sometimes you have to be careful on like proving yourself to certain people, because I've also found that in myself here recently of like, it's almost like a need to,
like, you're never going to be good enough kind of thing. Like you're always proving.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like a proof of worth. And so it's like I've found a difference between self-confidence and self-worth. And that's an interesting thing.
Yeah,
of like,
I agree.
Yeah, being worthy without having to do anything is not something that I felt ever. So I always had to prove myself. I had to be worthy. And so I will accomplish a lot, and I can accomplish a crazy amount. And I think that comes from like a lack of love in your childhood. So I'm experiencing that now and trying to figure out how I can like feel worthy, because we know logically, if you're a Christian, that like, hey, you're loved no matter what. But it's not a logical thing. It's like an emotionally felt thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm working to figure out how to feel again, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's honestly like a very common problem, even with like high achievers, because, and I kind of struggle with this a little bit too, like, because I associate worthiness with hard work and achievement. But like, what? So do you know Keith? You probably don't know Keith. One of Gary's like leadership coaches. His name's Keith. You might have seen him. But that's what he's been working with me on. He's like, you don't have to be doing something all the time in order for you to like be good enough. And I'm like, I don't know how to not do something. Like I need to fill the time with things to do. Yep. So I'm trying to shift my perspective on that too. Like even right now, we're filming a podcast at 10 o'clock at night because like we got to get this done, Yep. We've only been talking about it for like a year. So, so how do you work through that? Like have you learned some strategies, or what's in the book on how to feel worthy?
So actually I didn't talk about it in the book. What I found from the book was that realization, because what I found out from writing the book was that the reason of why I am the way that I am is because of what I experienced. And so you're right. I am, the circumstance did create this person, but that's the interesting thing is the circumstance doesn't have to create the person in a negative way. It can also be in some positive way. But here's the other interesting thing about the whole positive versus negative. I was going so hyper positive that I wasn't thinking about like the negative aspects of even being super positive, because I always say that everybody has a gift, and like I believe that God gifts people with like amazing things. With great gifts also comes like the opposite of whatever that gift is. So if you're super optimistic, I have a friend of mine who's extremely optimistic. Like he's the most optimistic person I've ever seen in my entire life. And that is such a gift, especially when you're in a low spot and you need somebody to like believe no matter what. He has that optimism. But then when stuff's bad, he can't even be real about, hey, like you're experiencing some pain and stuff. He won't even acknowledge it. He won't even acknowledge it because it's like he doesn't want to admit it. And so his optimism is like a downfall in that sense. Same thing with me. I would say one of my greatest strengths is like I see like gifts in people, and I know what they're capable of.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, man, I know what you can do. And like, there's nothing that you can say that's going to like disprove that. But then the problem is when that expectation, like whenever you're not fulfilling what I know you're capable of, then now it comes across as criticism for me. Very similar to how Brian was with you.
Yeah.
That's very much what I do, because I'm like, I hold people to a standard that I know they can do. Not usually my standard, which I'm still working on because I don't want to hold them to what I think they should do. I hold them to what I know they're capable of and what they say they can do. But either way, it creates this, there's a positive and there's always that negative side. So it creates a little bit of a negative side whenever you lean too much in it. So I think that trauma causes you to, become a different person, but it could be in a lot of good ways.
You could use it for good. Yeah.
100%.
One thing that I learned too in the last, I'd say, I don't know, few years is that accountability is love. So like you were saying like criticism, but it's actually like, that's because someone cares about you. If they don't care, they're not going to, push you.
100%.
So I've really shifted my perspective on that. And like, it's a good thing. If you care about someone, you're going to push them to, live up to their potential. So
that's what I believe too. I think it's more difficult, especially in a relationship. Because
do you want to go there? No, I'm just kidding.
I can. Yeah. That's honestly, that's where I've been like figuring out a lot more recently. And that's what I've been like focusing in on, because like now I'm like, man, I just turned 30. And so like me,
he's so old.
Yeah. To me, I'm like, dang, like, well, I had a vision and I've created a lot of.
Well, you want to have a family, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I've accomplished a lot of what I wanted to accomplish by the time frame I wanted to accomplish them. Well, I thought by 30 that I would like have a wife and kids, and like it'd be like time to start going more down that path, and it's not really possible. And so I've just been leaning more into that. So
what do you mean it's not possible?
It's not possible for me, I guess. Yeah, let me rephrase that. It's not possible to just like get a wife and stuff, because there's a lot of other what's the right word? There's just a lot. I can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go just marry a girl, because I could have just married my ex that I just broke up with, but she wasn't the right woman for me, you know. And so like, I'm not just gonna just do it because I want to hit a goal. It's like, well, I'm going to make sure this the right person. And so it's like, it's a difficult thing. It's not just like an easy decision. Whereas like, if you want to build a business, like, it's like, all right, yeah, I want to make this amount of money. If I want to lose weight, it's like, okay, those are a lot easier goals to hit. Whereas if you're looking for a long-term thing for like the rest of your life, it's a pretty big decision. And so it's not just like, I can just go accomplish it very easily.
Have you defined what the perfect girl?
The perfect. Yes.
Well, have you? You wrote it down?
Oh yeah. I wrote down a lot.
Oh, tell me about her.
So man, it's a long list.
My list was long too. Very long. Yeah.
It's a long list.
But I think that's good. You get clear on what you want.
Yeah.
So you have a long list. Okay. You don't need to get in, I guess, to the details. You just got out of a relationship recently. So, I mean, I feel like you're on your way. Like, you're doing all the right things. Like, you got clear on what you wanted.
Yeah. Well, that's the issue too. Is
like, did you have clarity before when you found the one that didn't work out?
Correct. Yeah. That's what I was just about to say. Is like,
she had everything on the list?
From the beginning, yeah. In the beginning, I thought she did.
So it was fake?
It's not necessarily fake. It's like, I think it was there. And I think that in the beginning, people are going to be...
on their best behavior.
Yeah, on their best. Yeah. And I think that when you're with somebody for, like, let's say about 6 months, you're going to start to see, like, the other...
real person.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. The real person, the other qualities.
A couple more months left. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that you will. Like, you'll start to see some stuff like, oh, maybe I don't like this. And like,
This is an interactive podcast. Everybody's here. We have 40 people in the bedroom.
No, but yeah. Okay. So you saw after 6 months.
Yeah, I just saw some different qualities that I was uncertain of. And I've also realized a lot about myself. So I would say in the beginning of a relationship, I'm so like wanting to make it work and wanting the person to like me that I forget to like really like, do I like them? And
that's good.
And so it's been an interesting thing, but so
you're like, you just like are kind of a people pleaser.
Yeah, which is interesting because I think that most people would not see me like that.
I could see it. Yeah. Because you just care. You care so much about people. And, well, and you probably, it probably stems from the childhood of wanting to be loved.
Yeah.
Like deep down. So, but that's what honestly we all want. So no matter what your childhood was like, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny that you say that because like that's what I think that everybody wants. So whenever I see people like acting out, being crazy, like, I mean, even my ex did some crazy stuff, and I'm like, man, like she really just wants love. She's just not really going about it in the way that makes me want to love her. And so it's difficult.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you kind of see the best in people, which is a blessing and a curse, because then you could probably tolerate more than.
Well, that's the most interesting part too, is I see the best in people until I really get to know them. And then I'm like, man, I see some crazy, like seriously, I see everybody and I see their weaknesses. And so sometimes I forget to recognize of like their strengths. That's why I said like I gave Brian that advice, because I can see everybody and I know what their potential is. Their potential never stops. But then I see the negative sides and I'm like, it's hard for me depending on what it is. If I see selfishness in people, which I think we all have some selfishness, but if I see that, and like that really is hard for me, I guess. So
give me an example of what you mean by see the selfishness in someone.
I'm trying to decide if I should give an example from her or somebody else. So selfishness to me would be like, I asked somebody that's close to me what they thought that love was and like what that actually means. And like if you do something for somebody. So if you do something for somebody and you would not do it unless they reciprocated, and like you do it only to get the other person to like you more, to like be thankful or grateful for it, or like to feel that, it just seems like to me that's like not love. And so for me, it's a weird thing, but I would tell somebody, similar to what Brian did with you, I would tell somebody something that might hurt their feelings, and they might not like me for the rest of their life. But if I thought that it was actually going to better their life, then I will do it. Regardless of how you feel about me, think about me or anything, I would do something that would help you. And that to me is like actual love, of like wanting the best for somebody, regardless of what happens to me. Yeah. Regardless of like
unconditional love is what it.
Not even unconditional, but like detrimental to me. And if it means the betterment for them, like that's what love, I don't know, just feels like. And so when I don't see that same definition, then it is very difficult. So.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. What's the book called? I got to read this book.
Yeah. So.
Do you have a name?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm going to keep it. This is From Foster Care to Millionaire.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. What would you say, like, if there was a foster kid listening to this podcast, like that, I don't even know what they're going to be experiencing, you know, or what is going on in their head, but like, what advice would you give them to like help support them?
I would say it's going to be okay. And yeah, I think that it will get better. And so just hope for them would be good. Yeah.
Would you advise them to pray, or did you do that then? Or when did you?
So I would say my relationship with God really got strong at 18. I would say was when I got saved.
Okay.
So no. I didn't really know what to do except for like be strong, I would say. So that again created this side of me that was great in a lot of ways, I would say, like very powerful. And so I was 6 years old when all of it happened, 6 or 7, I can't exactly remember. But I had 2 sisters and I was like, oh man, I'm going to protect them. And like, I'm going to, you know, be the man now and like step up. And that kind of translated over to all of my entire life, to where I kind of took on the responsibility of everybody else, of like protecting them and all of that stuff. So yeah, I would say, yeah, it's going to be okay though.
Do you think they should try to pray?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, yeah, God is with them.
That's good advice, I think. Wow. Okay. Well, gosh, I feel like this was a good podcast. I mean, we could keep going, but it's so late. So when does the book come out?
That's a great question. So I'm through 3rd round of editing right now. So I think there's 5. And so I'm really hoping by the end of the year, because it's been 2 years now.
Really?
Yeah. It's been brutal. It is not what I thought it was going to be at all. I thought I was going to write this book on like, okay, here's how you become a millionaire and this is going to be freaking great. And then like, I just like write all this tactful stuff. And then I started writing it. And then like I had to feel what happened was I wrote it from like this hero's perspective where I'm like, yeah, this is what I learned in this. And then I'm like, nobody's going to read this. Like, how did I actually feel in the moment? And I never allowed myself to feel in the moment because I just like masked it because I had to be strong in the moment.
You were in like survival mode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I had to go back and actually feel emotions that I never felt and then write about it. And it was some brutal stuff. And then I'm also not a writer. Like, so for me to like take these thoughts and like map it all out is a lot of work for me. And so it was brutal. And so I'm so happy to be done.
I can't wait to read it. It sounds like it's going to be amazing. Like, I think you're so great and you're really vulnerable. And everyone that meets you, like, loves you. You know, you get so many
Not
people
everybody.
on your sales calls. No, that you do. Like, everyone that I come across that knows you, they like rave about you. And I think it's because you genuinely care.
That's awesome.
And you're really making a difference, like, in a lot of people's lives, which is really cool. Because to me, like, that's what life is all about.
100%.
You know? So.
Yep. That's what I feel like too. I feel like God has given me a gift to like see the potential in people and then help them to like realize it in themselves. And I'm like, man, that is what I want to do more of. So
yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for finally doing a podcast with me.
Yeah, of course.
It's only been like a year. We've been trying to schedule it.
Yep.
Yeah. And we even have a live audience.
Let's go.